Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Victoria, but you can call me Sarah's mom. Thank you for this opportunity to give you all some background and news about LSSI, Washington Place Group Home for Adults with Prader-Willi Syndrome. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge some very special LSSI people who have taken extremely good care of me. Billy Joe Quincy, Susan Breathy, Barb Haley, Tim Frakes, Mariah Hines, and Kevin Burkaw. He's retired. LSSI and Washington Place saved my daughter's life in 2005. That may sound like an exaggeration to you, however, I can tell you it is not. LSSI and Washington Place are the only reason for her being alive and thriving as a member of society today. I debated on how to winnow a childhood as well as a birth defect without losing too many moments of historical importance, so please bear with me. I'm going to provide just a few to give you some background on my child and introduce you to the rare genetic anomaly of Prader-Willi syndrome. There are no visuals other than what you imagine from hearing our story. My daughter was born in 1981 in Peoria, Illinois. She was kept in hospital undergoing all sorts of tests because she didn't cry when the medical staff drew blood. Nothing was determined, and we were released at a week old. She grew tired during feeding time. Otherwise, she was beautiful and a joy. She never crawled. However, she rolled so fast that I would lose her in the house. Having a nagging feeling that she wasn't developing as my son had, I took her to a pediatric neurologist at 6 months. I was told to stop comparing children. She was a happy child, and they all develop at their own pace. At 9 months, I took her to my ophthalmologist because she had lazy eye. Patching until surgery at 18 months, and then patching to strengthen those muscles until age 4. About this time, she began putting on weight and was chubby. At age 5, she had 5 root canals on baby teeth. She experienced the routine illnesses of childhood, and if you gave her verbal instructions, she would get confused. However, if you gave her instructions while performing the task, she was smart and capable immediately. Machinery intrigued her. She would ask total strangers if they owned a vacuum sweeper or a washing machine, and it would stop them in their tracks. Socially, she preferred adults. Teachers retained her in kindergarten due to this. I enrolled her in piano lessons to help with her fine motor skills, and she was approved for special education resource room help and labeled learning disabled from kindergarten, and this lasted through grade 12. I had taken her to many doctors, and they always focused on one particular thing rather than Sarah as a whole or a big picture. She was short, and she was gaining weight, and it was becoming worrisome. It made no sense. I took her to a locally revered pediatrician, and he yelled at me to stop poking food down her throat. I followed his instructions for a month, and upon recheck, he was very pleased that she had lost a single pound. I made a comment during his patting himself on the back speech about how I could lose a pound after a BM, and things went south. We ended our relationship. It was during this time that I was employed at a community college library, and I ordered a physician's endocrinology diagnostic manual. My 12-year-old daughter was going to die without intervention, and it was on me. I had to do something. The librarian informed me that I would not be able to read it, and she wasn't wasting her time, thus denying my request. I informed her that I could read a dictionary and to order that manual. I wrote everything I had ever noted about Sarah over her entire life, and I tried to figure out what she might be afflicted with using that diagnostic manual and dictionary side by side. Took over a week, but then I made an appointment with my general practitioner who had never met Sarah. I asked him to listen to me because I was paying for an office visit and I needed to be heard. I took photographs of Sarah from childhood. I also had her stepdad and her father as witnesses with me. The doctor sat down and motioned for me to proceed, and after 45 minutes, he agreed to perform testing which proved that my diagnosis of Cushing's syndrome was not correct. So much for my medical degree. However, we were also referred to Cardinal Glennon in St. Louis, and it was there that Sarah was finally diagnosed with Prader-Willi syndrome, weighing 189 pounds. The literature I was given painted a grim picture of morbid obesity and no cure. PWS is a disorder prevalent in 1 out of every 12 to 15,000 births. It's a deletion on chromosome number 15 of our genetic makeup. A tiny little omission on this chromosome is responsible for numerous manifestations which can occur in people with PWS. When I read the pamphlet, I realized Sarah's whole life up to this point was in bullet form. Nothing had changed other than we now had a name. No medication or surgery to fix, no cure. Nothing had changed. Boy, was I naive to think that. Sarah underwent 3 surgeries for scoliosis, but she gained an inch in height. She graduated high school and enrolled in community college. And this is when psychotic episodes entered the picture. My compassionate, sensitive, kind, and caring child, whose only goal in life was to help others less fortunate, now had a bus at her disposal and could not control her brain from constantly telling her that she was starving. It's nearly impossible to make someone understand how PWS people never experience feeling full, like you and I do after a meal, because their brains are telling them to eat. They are insatiable. Prader-Willi kills those afflicted by literally eating themselves to death. Their brains are wired so they cannot stop feeling hungry and they think they are starving. Imagine all the ways food plays a part in our lives, not simply to sustain, but at all types of celebrations throughout our lives, from brunch with a friend to family reunions. And now imagine that you are afflicted with PWS and have a damaged hypothalamus gland telling you that you're starving and you need food, and you see food everywhere you look, including all the checkouts at the store. It's torture. The literature that I was given focused on childhood patients and overeating, rather than adults and their manifestations of PWS. Mental illness came as quite a surprise. Okay, so here I want you all to take a deep breath and close your eyes and think of something that makes you happy. I promise you this story gets better. But actually it gets worse before. So just hang in there with me, okay? Deep breath, everyone. Sarah was denied CELA services through Southern Illinois Case Coordination beginning at age 18. After numerous attempts to locate an agency that would benefit Sarah and place her where she belonged, a decline in her mental state was becoming evident. Her desire had been to live in an LSSI Prader-Willi adult group home since first learning they existed. She had never met anyone with PWS. Sarah ran away several times, and once during an extremely rough episode, she ended up in a mental health ward in Olney, Illinois, where they refused to allow us to see her because she was an adult. It was difficult, however, we managed to get her released and became her legal guardians. However, state agencies then jumped on the mental illness aspect of her predicament because Sarah is in the 3% of persons with Prader-Willi syndrome who are not mentally delayed. Unfortunately, she is affected by a mental disorder, as are many with this birth defect. She was arrested numerous times for ordering and eating food at restaurants and then not having money to pay the bill afterwards. Our phone rang off the wall most days and nights. For most part, the police were helpful and recognized that she had some type of a disability. However, there were other times it was really unpleasant. The roller coaster ride of thinking we'd found an agency equipped to handle her disability, only to learn that they were flummoxed, continued to occur for numerous years, and each effort would cause her mental stability to deteriorate further. We were awaiting the DHS appeal, and Sarah agreed to hospitalization at Choate Mental Health Facility in Anna, Illinois, because she needed to be safe. I was very naive. I took all of my information to the appeal thinking I could convince them that she qualified for assistance if they would simply read the subparagraph of the statute where there is a list of disabilities that have no mention of mental retardation. Prader-Willi isn't listed. However, I believe it to be another example of a disability that would receive assistance if those in charge of interpreting the law would simply listen and read. As I stated earlier, I can be naive. I was there to fight for my child and thought I could win the appeal. The room was filled with case coordination employees, as well as the director of Illinois DHS on the phone, who belittled me continually for wasting their time, and I quote, "because we don't just declare someone mentally retarded." And that is exactly how she stated it to me. Once again, Sarah was denied SELA services. Our hopes of Sarah ever living in an environment desirable to her particular needs were dashed. At the age of 23 and weighing well over 300 pounds, Choate's social workers were told she didn't belong there, and they must deem her fit enough to transfer to a senior adult nursing home. You know, Alzheimer's patients and transitioning drug addicts. The Choate personnel told me they knew she belonged in a Prader-Willi group home, but their hands were tied because of her IQ. She was sent to a nursing home in Energy, Illinois, and began gaining weight exponentially at an increasingly fast pace even for her. She became slovenly and rude. As her girth increased, her ability to move and stand became more difficult. She couldn't wear shoes. Her legs were as large as tree trunks. Her breathing was labored. She was finding personal hygiene a problem, and she suffered deep depression. We were concerned she would not see another birthday. Our efforts to get political intervention were ineffective, and hope wasn't something we easily considered any longer. However, our prayers were answered, and not a moment too soon. I had written a 5-page, single-spaced letter to nearly every politician in Illinois. That was an exercise in futility. That same letter was given to employees of Washington Place. LSSI saved our child's life. Knowing we could not afford to pay, and of the state's denial for services, LSSI said to bring her to Washington Place. They recognized the severity of our situation and chose to help because it was the right thing to do. I didn't believe the person on the phone until he told me this several times. I asked him if this phone call was some cruel joke because I had been through so many denials and nobody seemed to want to help us. Sarah is a true charity case for LSSI. She arrived at Washington Place weighing well over 388 pounds, 24 years of age, and 4 feet 10 inches tall. She met several people with her birth defect that day who were residents, and she's lived there since June 2005. Today, she's happy and healthy and thriving. Her life Her life is no longer merely an existence. She has developed relationships with other residents and staff members, and they have all become her extended family. Sarah is developmentally delayed, but she can't work because no business will hire her since they don't get state reimbursement. Washington Place Director, Miss Billie Jo Quincy, who rocks, has found volunteer work for Sarah. She performs entry-level secretarial and receptionist work for a local nonprofit state agency in Jacksonville. She also volunteers at a local animal shelter, doing routine cleaning and spending time with the animals, getting them used to human interaction and ready for adoption. The devoted Washington Place staff encourages her to be creative and continue to learn and be a contributing member of society. In other words, meaningful inclusion, rather than hidden away and out of sight, as so often people with disabilities must endure. She is safe, and our lives are so much better knowing she is in a loving environment. Trained and dedicated staff provide 24-hour care for the residents, all of whom have Prader-Willi syndrome. Their basic needs are provided with dignity. Food and the kitchen are not accessible to residents. Exercise is required daily. Sarah's medical needs are given priority, and physicians' appointments are regularly scheduled. Activities and recreation, church, community events, volunteerism, Special Olympics, library visits, and shopping by the residents is encouraged. Parental and family involvement is welcomed. Cleaning, laundry, and their Washington Place feline friends, housekeeping duties are shared, working together as a family unit. We have peace of mind, and that was not something we had the luxury of for many, many years. LSSI has given us the opportunity to just be a regular family and enjoy spending time together. We are no longer on high alert with worry about our daughter. When we are together, we have to maintain vigilance with her because overeating can kill her easily and quickly. Binge eating or simply overeating one meal can result in acute idiopathic gastric dilation, where part of the stomach tissue dies, similar to when a heart attack victim, part of their heart dies. This is life-threatening and requires immediate surgery. When a person with PWS greatly distends their stomach with food, it can cut off blood supply, causing necrosis. Another risk of binge eating that can create a serious medical emergency is GI perforation. So it's always going to be an issue, but it's nothing like all those years ago. We spend holidays and vacations together, and it's wonderful. The generosity LSSI showed Sarah reminds everyone who hears her story how the good works of Christ are to continue through us, and literally saved our daughter from a miserable existence and no doubt untimely death. Words don't seem adequate. Sarah sometimes worries that she won't be able to stay in Beardstown because of the costs involved, but she has never been healthier or happier in her adult life. Your generosity gives people a chance to flourish. It allows them to be with others who share their trials and tribulations, yes, but it also allows them to be healthy and happy and their best selves together as a family. As a parent, you simply want your child to have a happy, healthy life. As a parent of a child with PWS, you simply want your child to have a life. This is what the miracle of your ministry and selfless giving has provided for my family. I need to interject here. I wrote my entire testimonial before I knew that the theme for this event was Everyday Heroes. Okay. Years ago, I came across a quote by a woman named Mary Roach that spoke to me. Heroism doesn't always happen in a burst of glory. Sometimes small triumphs and large hearts change the course of history. You of LSSI are all my heroes. Your generosity and large hearts created a small triumph for our family and changed our history. And even though these words seem inadequate, thank you. Let me introduce you to Sarah. Honey, could you please stand and wave?